And gentlemen, Frugal Fundamentals is back. We're gonna get right into it. Just uploading the labeling and whatever you gotta do. Perfect. So we got my guy Peyton Thompson, former professional NFL football player, now working in the real estate entrepreneur, foundation owner, connector, doing a lot of great things. So we're going to talk about his career transition, real estate, and then betting on yourself. He has a great story, comes from a football family, just doing a lot of amazing things. So I thought it would be cool to have him on as we brought Frugal Fundamentals back. So if you guys aren't hip to what we do, is virtual workshops with athletes and people involved in the business, sports business space, virtual workshops, IG Live or private Zoom links. Make sure you check the website out for that. And then we repurpose them into YouTube and audio content. So with that being said, I'm going to get Peyton Thompson on. IG name is Tatted and Spatted. I like that. He's going to have to explain that once we get him on. I forgot to pin that comment, but who cares? Here we go. Where we at? How did I send him? View. Perfect. The man, the myth, the legend.
Hey.
What's up, man?
What's up, man?
How you doing?
Man, good. Still recovering from those tacos yesterday.
Yeah, that was a little crazy.
Shout out to Povos.
Yeah, shout out to Pablo. So Peyton Thompson, give us the rundown. What's the backstory on your story?
Oh man, went to San Jose State. Came out of Sacramento. Shout out to Sacktown. Went to San Jose State. Was undrafted. Practice squad for a couple years, and then bounced around 5 or 6 years in the league. Man, made some solid money, and on to the next. Like we talked about. Really using that platform of sports and how you value that currency and what you actually do with it into your transition, man. Moved out here to Austin, like I told you, it was a blind shot in the dark. I just had to get out of California, retired, man, and just got into, just started getting into to every dollar, right? And you start realizing it's $80 to fill up a tank in California, and it's only 35 here. So the transition was quick, dude. It was I'm moving January 1st, and nothing else was going to be heard, man. So back to a income tax-free state. Cost of living is a little bit cheaper, man, and then just dove head into real estate. So been a ride ever since.
No, that's amazing. And I want to take it back a little bit. You mentioned San Jose State and going undrafted. I feel like, you took that approach from getting undrafted, finding your way into the league, to your new career, betting on yourself. So can you talk about that mindset of, understanding your capabilities, understanding your talents, and then going, to reach your full potential?
Right. I mean, like all sports, there's that aspect of, just figure it out, right? You got to figure it out. I mean, you can go ask somebody if you want to, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to figure it out, right? And that applies during the play. That applies in school, whether you're studying or not. That applies with what you do after school in that transition, or what you decide to do after sports, right? And a lot of people kind of want to understand, how do you make the transition, or what is it that you transfer over and apply? And to me, it's always that blind work of faith, right?
Yeah.
When you're in high school and junior high, and you wanted to go somewhere with it, right? And you wanted to do something with your athletic abilities or any other abilities you have, and you work without a reward the next day or the next week or the next month. And I think that as adults, we get used to bringing in income, and we get used to immediate success, or actual metrics or goals that are hit that measure your success. And I think people forget about how they fell in love with what they first fell in love with, right? They were just blindly working at it because they liked it, and then one day they were able to bear fruit from that, right? And I think as adults, we get so hooked on, how much money am I making? What am I doing? How much am I seeing from this? That we measure our success on that, and often we quit, or we just don't follow through on things because we don't remember what it was like to work in those situations, in those environments, right? So to answer your question, transferring over that figure it out and find a way mentality through your transition, whether you see immediate success or not, and following through on that until you find success.
No, that's a bar right there. I really like how you talked about success. Like, how you view success can help you in your transition. And a lot of athletes struggle with that because you're at the height of your career. You're making money. You're on top of the world. Everyone knows you. And then when you find your next passion, you have to make sure that success is different in that landscape, or else you're not going to be, purposeful.
Right. Absolutely. And it's about really just knowing who you are, man. Like, well, if you were in a sport, you'd have a coach there telling you, this is what you did wrong, this is what you need to correct, this is who you think you are, and this is who you show on tape, so this is how we're going to fix it, right? And it's kind of just being your own coach. Whether some people find mentors and they find other people to cling to, but especially in that immediate transition out of sports, a lot of it is on you, and that's where you bet on yourself, right? You bet on yourself to be thorough in yourself and actually defining who you are and what your small goals are to get to the main goal.
No, respect. And you come from a football family, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Pops played ball. Older cousin out of Sac, got drafted to play for the Broncos for a couple of years. Then I was next, and then Shaq just signed that big one with Carolina, man. So 4 in a row.
That's big time. So can you talk about that? Like, coming from a football family, like, what principles were you able to learn from your dad, from your cousins, and apply to your own career?
That's tough, bro. You know how transitional sports character building and tools and traits are. Man, it goes back to that figure it out. My dad was one of those guys that, like, he got up early and trained other guys, but it was like, if you don't want to come, you don't have to. That's on you, right?
It's almost like iron sharpens iron, huh?
Yeah, it was like, if you want to BS on it, go ahead, right?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of allows you to lean and rely on yourself more and more, whether that's like an individual workout, that's a game, or that's a business transaction or relationship you're building. It's kind of like, hey, man, I got me. What can I control? What variables can I control and lead in the process to get where I need to get? And then if I get some help from other people, that's okay too. But it really comes down to an individual effort, right? And that's really what we learned in our families, man. You got to find a way, and you're going to be by yourself a lot. And how are you going to define those terms and that success?
No, that's a great point, because, as athletes, you have to be willing to put in the work. You put it on the field, but when it comes to, now in your case, business, real estate, you got to put in the work. You got to be willing to learn. You got to be willing to grind. You got to be willing to, start from the ground up. So talk about your transition into real estate. You're the Prince of Austin. Everyone I talk to in Austin out here, knows you some way, shape, or form. So how did you come here January 1st, didn't know anyone, and make it work?
I'm going to tell you exactly how, dude. You buy as many cups of coffee as you possibly can.
Hey, hold on. Let me get my notebook. I feel like notes are coming. Hold on.
As many cups of coffee as you... Okay, Jay Swan on here. You buy as many cups of coffee as you possibly can, bro. There's no other way around it. That is what it is, right? And you kind of just spider web out your network, right? So, I knew 1 or 2 great people here, connectors. As you know, Austin is a very business forward and just positive and productive city, man. Everybody really wants to help. There's enough opportunity where people, I don't think, feel limited. So when you come here, whether you're new or, you're just new to the space, but you've been here, people are very helpful and want to connect you. And once I started to realize that, that's when I was like, okay, I'm moving there January 1st. And then once I got there, January 1st, 2019, easy now, I see. Once I got there, man, it was connecting, who are good people that hold the values and character that I believe in, that I have used in sports to be thorough and that have allowed me to trust people. Can I find people like that in Austin? And I met 1 or 2, and as you would expect, those high character type of people that you associate yourself with, if they see that they're aligned with you and they see something in you that reminds them of them, or they understand that you're not asking them for anything, you're not asking for a job or a deal or a transaction, you're not asking for anything, all you're doing is asking to learn from their story and sit down and see where they messed up in their transition. They could be 50, they could be 30, they could be 25. At some point, everybody had a couple of transitions or a transition, and you really just ask them to identify what speed bumps and or success that they found, and how did they work around that, or how did they find success, or how did they grow from what they learned and do something different to be successful. And I just felt like taking notes, I would just take handwritten notes with everybody I met with, and I would just summarize it by typing it back into the computer, and I would spit it back to whoever connected me with them. So, for example, guy out here, great connector, Justin introduced me to him, but Jonathan Patton. I had a cigar with Jonathan Patton, bought him a cigar and some coffee. We're hanging out for a couple hours. Next morning, I wake up. He literally put me in 20 separate emails with different contacts that he had in Austin, with people who were in real estate or doing things that I said maybe I wanted to be a part of or wanted to look at. And I took each one of those people to coffee within the next 2 weeks. I just immediately got with every one of them. Took them to coffee, cigar, whatever it was, lunch, and just picked their brain. And what you'll come to find out is there is no Sports Center top 10 for business. They don't do a 30 for 30 on business professionals, right? So you'll find a lot of business professionals are excited to tell their story, right? They're excited to tell you about their success and their failures, because it's probably not often that they get to do that, especially to an athlete who's making a transition, right? They have some sort of interest there as well. People just are very open. I don't know if that's just Austin or that's just people, when they find success, they like to spit it back out and help somebody else and, bring up the youth, but or the younger guys coming behind them. But everyone was very open. I took in that information. I wrote everything down, and I stayed in contact with those people. And 10 people turned into 20, 20 turned into 100, 100 turned into all the people you say you're hearing from now. So,
no, man, that was bars right there, because now I gotta open up a coffee budget. Like that simple principle is a key to networking. Mm-hmm. And I like how you started with one. You didn't overwhelm yourself. From one, you turned into 2, to turn into 10, to turn into 20, and you kept going. And the value add piece, ask questions, be curious. All these simple things that anyone can do led you to your path now. And I think that's really amazing. I think that's great advice. And any athlete can do it.
The biggest part is it really just gets you ready for the big meetings and big opportunities that you will be a part of down the road. You're sitting there talking to people who are CEOs, or they're builders, or they own banks, and you're sitting down having coffee with them, and next thing you know, now you're talking to government officials. Now you're talking to people who actually make moves and make calls, right? And you're very comfortable in those situations because you've already had 50 cups of coffee. Like you already know what this sit down is about, right? And you become very comfortable, and you become more thorough in the things that you're talking about. And I think whether you learn how to have that sit down, or whether you're learning what questions to ask, or you're learning in order to start failing forward to whatever it is you want to be successful in, you're gaining something from those conversations. From that $5 expensive latte you bought, you gain something, right?
Yeah. And you wrote the notes down too.
From that is perfect, right? You can't ask for more.
No, that's big time. And, in football, you have to think ahead. In life, you have to think ahead. That's something you did. What made you pick Austin specifically? You were in Cali. You talked about, no state income tax. Like, what was the strategic move about around Austin?
It was either Florida or Texas, that's for sure. I had been in Florida for a while, obviously in Jacksonville. My only other move in Florida, a place I actually visited and wanted to live, was outside of Tampa, like a St. Pete area.
Okay.
And then I was actually born in Abilene. I was only here about a year after I was born, but I've always wanted to kind of come back to Texas. Dallas was a little too lively for me. A little bougie over there. But Austin is just, the city is just growing at a crazy rate, right? And it's similar to the Bay, so it's tech heavy. There's a lot of people moving here from California, so that I knew that would make the transition a little bit easier. I didn't know that I would meet so many people from California. I didn't know that it would be that. I didn't know it would be that saturated, but it is. It's like 7 out of 10 people I meet, 8 out of 10 people from California, and weirdly Colorado. But everybody, that's what helped me make the transition to it. It just seemed seamless. It seemed like the right move. The city was growing. Sometimes you just got to pull the trigger and bet on you.
No, that's what it's all about. And so let's talk about real estate a little bit. Real estate's something that a lot of athletes, look to as a sort of another investment. why do you think real estate's, so prevalent amongst athletes? What are some talking points or some terminology that athletes should look out for when it comes to real estate?
The real estate in general is just a cool investment because you can put your hands on it, right? You can invest in portfolios and stocks and bonds and do your thing, right? But you can't, you don't really ever get to see that unless you're skilled enough to actually play with the numbers and adjust those things, right? Real estate's interesting to people because there's enough beginners getting into it that people feel comfortable enough to latch onto those beginners and learn from their mistakes and their success. Also, like I said, you can go over there and touch the project, and you're an actual factor on the success of the project versus just hoping that it works out. Why in Austin? Why in Texas? Property taxes are high, but cost of living is just much lower. So people are moving here. The demand is really high for homes. People are just constantly moving here. So it's something that's forever churning and evolving and growing, which obviously is where you would like to place an investment or where you would like to buy a first home. And then Austin in general is just, like I said, tech hub. There's a lot of things coming here. Hopefully we get Tesla out here on the east side.
And Elon we trust.
Yeah, thanks, right? And man, it's just, this is where you want to be. If there's 3 places in the U.S. to be in real estate during COVID, post-COVID, I'd rather be here, right? I'd rather be in Texas and specifically Austin, just from the way that the data shows that the last economic downturn affected real estate here. It only hit a couple points. Obviously, things weren't as prevalent here at the time, but it only knocked down a couple points, and we've only seen a small glitch from COVID so far out here. So everything's looking real promising on the bounce back up. As far as terms, man, I would just learn the basics. If I were trying to get into real estate, dude, I would just learn the basics. A lot of people think they need to go to real estate school or get their license to learn the basics. Man, if you hop on YouTube University or Google and just type in certain things like, what is the process of buying a house, right? Bigger Pockets podcasts.
Plug right there.
University, bro. All of it, man. Tons of books. I mean, you can get into the Grant Cardones and you can get into all that stuff if you want to, but the most basic stuff people just don't even know. And the Google's right there, man, for people to just get informed on what a lease process is like, what a buying process is like, what investing is like, right? That may be the biggest X factor. They don't really have all those answers on Google, but by understanding the buying and selling and how mortgages work and interest rates work and understanding the basic fundamentals of real estate, which you can find anywhere, will help you have much more thorough and educational conversations with people so that you can get further in the conversation versus thinking, man, I don't know what he said. I don't really understand that. Or let me write that down so I can see what it is later. And then now you've lost out in the progression of the conversation, right? So I would say basic terminology and just understanding of how the flow of real estate works in general is the best possible thing you can do or get into.
No, that's big time. I think with anything, you have to learn the basics. You have to build that foundation, and then from there you can build out. We spoke offline yesterday, and there's what I like about real estate is that there's so many different ways to get into real estate without feeling overwhelmed. So can you touch on, different things? And obviously, anyone listening, make sure you consult with your financial advisor, your financial team, before you take this advice and run with it. But
speaking of financial team, the tax specialist here, Carlton, over here talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad Guide to Investing is great for his book for real estate investing. He's not wrong. That's a great book.
Great book. We plugged that earlier today as well.
It's definitely a different perspective in which most people probably don't have going into real estate. So that is a really good book to read. What was the question again?
So just talk about the different ways you can get into real estate.
Multiple ways, and I think that's why people are so interested in it, man. There's so many different ways to structure a deal that I think that's what keeps a lot of people out of real estate. There's so many variables or ways that you can get into it. There's not one way to learn it or 2 ways to learn how to get into it. So I think people kind of back up and feel really overwhelmed. I would say from a basics standpoint, obviously as a buyer, buy with a partner. And I'm not like a relationship partner, buy with a friend or a business or somebody who's in business or somebody who wants to invest. Like, partner up with somebody on something. For those of you who don't know, for a first time home buyer, you only need 3% down on the total project to acquire the property. And then those who aren't, even if you have a small property, you only need 20%. So that's why I say come with a partner. And a lot of this stuff, there he goes, flips, hard money lending, wholesale, syndication, REITs, buys, holds, joint ventures. I hear you. But a lot of that stuff is overwhelming for people. Just even getting the basic understanding of what those things Carlton just listed is tough on people, right?
Yeah.
That's tough on people because it is overwhelming, and people, obviously, when you're a little timid about something, it's hard for you to throw all of your money into that, right? So
That's
a lot
true.
of people do REITs, but it's kind of like throwing your money in the apple. Like, you're kind of just letting it happen, right? Flips, hard money lending, you can lend the money or you can be the one borrowing the money. Wholesale and syndication and things like that, bro, you can get into that, but if you're starting off with the basics, man, and you're just trying to create wealth, I really strongly suggest that you, a buddy, a partner, somebody you trust, you find a licensed professional who will source a deal for you, a small deal, whether that's a rental property or a small flip. You have somebody like a broker who really knows whatever market you're in, find you something. Now, they're going to have a fee that's associated with that, but it's best to have somebody hold your hand through the process successfully and through the bumps and bruises than to just never invest or to invest or buy something without guidance. But just hopping in all those different avenues of real estate, bro, the best way to get into it is to put your hands on it, man. Get into a deal, buy something, buy a small apartment, but obviously get with somebody who is a professional to really hold your hand throughout the process and make sure that you're doing it right from start to finish.
No, that's great advice. And you talked about many different ways to get in. My dad always told me there are many ways to the top of the mountain. And I really liked how you talked about, sharing the load or sharing the risk with a teammate or a partner. Being able to learn and minimize the risk, that's really important. And I want to shift gears. You're doing a lot of other things. You're not just doing real estate. You're not just connecting everybody in Austin. You're helping people. You're consulting fellow athletes. And you're doing your foundation. So before we let you go, can you talk about that?
So we started, me and my buddy MJ, he played at UT.
Shout out MJ.
Yeah, my dog MJ. MJ went to UT out here, tight end, big fella, won't miss him. We just noticed, obviously me just moving out here, I had a network that was expanding by the day. He had a current network from people that he went to college with, and we just decided to combine the two. And the whole mission is, obviously, we want to give back to the community, but that's our time to network and to blend our social spheres, right? To blend the people that we've met. So I bring current and retired athletes from all different backgrounds. We got all different backgrounds: rugby players, baseball players, soccer players, football players, retired. I mean, there's guys that are 50, right, that haven't played in 20 years, and there's guys that are still active that participate. And we throw events or hold events or go to schools or outreach programs, and we really just dive in, man. Spend a couple hours with the kids and really just try to be positive leaders and mentors in the city in which we're creating. As Austin continues to explode, every deal you do, you're becoming a part of the city, right? So to give that back or to get to know the actual people that you're helping or that you're building homes for, or you're creating opportunities for, is amazing, dude. And then once you bring in the fact that you're mixing all of your athlete networks, all of them, even people who come in town. When somebody comes in town, we'll hold an event that week just so they can meet everybody, and that may get more people into Austin, right? And then we blend that with our business social sphere and our business network. So now we're combining all athletes and business professionals together to do community outreach projects. And bro, all it does is boost business, and it just boosts your network. And at the same time, bro, you're reaching in physically to the community and actually able to help. And things just only go up from there.
Man, mad respect. It's all about iron sharpens iron. And someone just said, education is power. And what you guys are doing to give back, is really great. With that being said, the last question I have before we're going to leave it open, and I know you got to leave, you're a busy man. What advice would you have for athletes, your fellow athletes, today? Obviously COVID is taking the world by storm. But what advice would you have for athletes now, whether they're in transition, whether they're currently playing, whatever it may be?
All right, so I'm going to say, I hate when people say athletes aren't that busy, or, you know, an athlete would say, man, was too busy while I was playing to really dive into this. You got to feel for those people, because those athletes, they dedicate everything, you know, every ounce of every day into something, right? But the advice that I really give is find some time, make some time, right? Like, take it upon yourself to, you know, read a chapter a week in something that you have no idea about, even if it's the basic fundamentals of real estate and or creating wealth, or whatever your next venture is. Maybe if you read a book or have a conversation with people, use the taking people to coffee networking strategy. If you do that on your off day while you're playing, whether you're in college or you're a pro, you will find out, you won't necessarily find out what you want to do. I don't think that everybody's going to find the answer to what they want to do by reading a couple books, listening to YouTube, and expanding their network, or maybe talking to some CEO. They're probably not going to, the light's not going to click and say, man, that's what I want to do. But by taking people to coffee on your one day off, just hitting somebody up on LinkedIn, some random CEO, or by reading a book that helps you learn something that's completely outside of your box. It just helps you learn the basic fundamentals of anything, construction, development, coding, whatever it is that you want to get into. Find that time to devote to that, because when you get done playing, you want to have more than a basic understanding, because it's going to take you a long time. It's going to take you a year or 2 years to catch up in conversations and knowledge to these people who have a jump start on you. So I would say get those basic fundamentals by doing something. Dedicate something to yourself. You got to take one person to coffee. You got to read one book. You got to listen to one YouTube video a week and take some notes on it. Dude, learn something and at least get the terminology and basic fundamentals down of something that you want to do. And that'll help you figure out what you don't want to do. I promise you, 2 cups of coffee, 1 book into something, you're going to be like, dude, I don't want to do that. And that's half the battle when paving your way forward through that transition, is finding out what you don't want to do versus what you do want to do.
No, that's great advice, because sometimes you get so excited or you get so anxious that you just go to the first thing that comes. Well, if you're doing this homework or you're doing this groundwork from the start, you know, okay, I don't like this, I don't like that. Let me find my lane in these 3 avenues. Right. And I think that's really important. And you talked about starting with 1. You know, all it takes is 1, and then you build off that compound interest.
100% do. No, back to back. Knowledge is power. Hey, what did your guy say the other day? What did he say the other day about currency?
Oh, yeah. He said currency is not. We look at currency all wrong. You know, we just look at currency like money, but currency comes in many different forms. You know, currency in like the work we did, currency in the relationships we built, currency and the value that we've been able to provide over the course. So, yeah, that was the bar. You know, Derek Furlow, former student athlete, and now he's doing his thing. So, thanks for reminding me about that.
I took that as information was the currency. They were like, just gaining any sort of information that helps you pave your way forward is the ultimate currency you can gain out of a meeting, a check you get, anything. The information that you gain, bro, is the biggest currency you can use.
Respect. Well, thank you so much, Peyton. Tell the folks where they can find you. Obviously, on Instagram, they can find you with the profile and the live. But for the people that are going to see this later, where can they find you? Where they can reach out to you? I know travel's kind of down right now, but if you just go to Austin and just yell out Peyton Thompson, someone can get in touch with you.
Come on. Nah, you can. I'll tell you about the tatted and spatted later, man. We can get back to that. That's a great story, though. You can reach me here, man. You can reach me at Peyton at 12riversrealty.com, or you can always hit my line. I'll drop my number right here for y'all. It's always open, man. Whether it's for mentoring, advice, you're looking for a home, you want to build something, you just want to know about some investing stuff, you're thinking about Austin, man, call me. I always find some time, or at least make the time.
No, respect. Really appreciate you coming on. Frugal Fundamentals is back weekly, every Wednesday, usually 7 p.m. CST, depending on who we have on. But once again, thanks, Peyton. It means a lot for you to come on. I know you're a busy man, so appreciate you talking about your career, betting on yourself, and real estate. So with that being said, I know you got some stuff to do, so we'll call this a session.
the night shift of work continues, man. About to get back in. But I sure appreciate you having me, bro. And it was good connecting with you the other day, man. Let's make sure we continue to do that, COVID or not, and make some things happen out here.
Facts only.
All right, bro. Have a good one, man. Appreciate y'all.